A direction decided? Welcome into the Thursday, January 9th, 2025 edition of The Lunch Break. KDUS AM 1060, 100.7 HD2. Always on the KDUS AM 1060 app and also video streaming on the KDUS AM 1060 YouTube channel. Chris Schubert here with you for the next 2 hours here on The Lunch Break. And it appears as if a direction is solidifying. It appears as if the Phoenix Suns are operating full steam ahead. That is where we start today's show.
Time for our top story of the day. It's the Daily Special.
Two directions. Two different choices that the Phoenix Suns could make. Choice one, continue down the path you are on. Trade for Jimmy Butler. Move Bradley Beal. Continue to try to win with this group. Take this core and see this season through, despite being 3 games below 500, despite being on the outside looking in, despite being a team that looks lost, a team without leadership, a team that is, at least to me, devoid of culture. You can continue down that path. See this whole thing through. Then there's option two. Option two is to admit that this was a failure, to admit that this isn't working and choose to hit the reset button, which includes trading Bradley Beal, which includes choosing to not extend Kevin Durant, choosing to maybe entertain trading Devin Booker, but making the decision and looking your fans in the eye and saying, we are sorry, this didn't work. We tried, we gave it our best effort. We're a second apron tax team. We attempted to make this team a winner. It didn't work out. Bear with us. We're going to turn things around. That is the choice that this organization faces right now. Now, they don't have to immediately make a decision right this second, but you know those conversations are being had in boardrooms, in conference rooms, in office spaces in downtown Phoenix at the Footprint Center. You know that those conversations are ongoing. It appears as if a direction might have been decided. One of the things that we want to do here in 2025 here on the program is not just make this me talking into a microphone for 2 hours. We want to be interactive with you, the listener of the show. We want to be interactive with the people that we bring on this show as guests. We don't want to overdo it, but we want to make sure we bring you people that know the sports, know the topics better than we do, and can give us direct insight. But one of the other things that we want to do this year, and you've probably seen it already, we want to play more sound. We want to hear from the people, the people that are directly involved in all this, the people that are in the know, the experts. That's why we've played a lot of Bradley Beal the last couple of days, why we played Windhorse, why we play Mike Hazen. We want you to be able to hear and get my reaction to some of the quotes that we have. I've got something for you here to start today. Could do 2 hours just on this 1 minute cut that I'm about to play you. But Kendrick Perkins was on podcast. I believe the podcast is called Road Trippin'. And here he is talking about Jimmy Butler. And here he is talking about Jimmy Butler as it relates to the Phoenix Suns. This is a minute long. There's a lot to digest here, but here is Kendrick Perkins.
It's about two things, okay? It's about money, right? And from my sources, they're telling me that the Suns have a 2-year, $121 million extension waiting on Jimmy. Okay?
I believe it.
All right. I mean, I ain't no genius, but that's like 60 a year, okay?
Woo, somebody is drunk over there.
Hold on. Keep a cool booty, all right? Here's the next thing. Here's the next thing, okay? It's about relationships. And the relationship is Jimmy Butler and Kevin Durant. Ooh. Now, I told you this about 2 weeks ago when we made this bet that not only do Phoenix, yes, the organization, they want him. You know why? Because Kevin Durant wants Jimmy Butler. And if he does get Jimmy Butler, which I believe he will, they're both going to sign contract extensions. KD is going to sign as well. Now, what happens with Devin Booker in the near future, I don't know. But at the end of the day, this would make sense.
A direction decided. Now, Kendrick Perkins is not Woj when he was reporting on the NBA. He's not Shams Charania. He's not Brian Windhorst. But Kendrick Perkins is an ex-player. Kendrick Perkins has connections. Kendrick Perkins talks to a lot of people around and inside the NBA. And so we may be able to chalk this up to just an ex-player hearing something. It's not super solidified. But you know what? We're here today. Let's explore this. The Suns reportedly, if they were to trade for Jimmy Butler, have ready to go a 2-year, $121 million contract extension for Jimmy Butler, $60 million a season for a player in his mid-30s. That's takeaway number one. Takeaway number two is just how much influence Kevin Durant appears to have in this thought process. That this move is being done as a direct result of Kevin Durant's looming contract extension talks. And that this move is paired with wanting to keep Kevin Durant and Kevin Durant wanting Jimmy Butler here in Phoenix. So if you get Jimmy Butler, you then give Kevin Durant another reason to sign here, a long-term extension, or at least for the next couple of seasons. And then that throwaway line at the end of, I don't know what this means for the future of Devin Booker. That's a lot packed into 65 seconds. But what is the big takeaway there? There doesn't appear to be the sentiment, or at least this sentiment isn't winning the room. I don't know if there's a reflection of this isn't working. I don't know if there's a reflection of this is a failure, we need to hit the reset button. What you hear in this clip, what we hear with all the current rumors of how the Suns are acting, this is full steam ahead. This is, we're not deciding on a direction, we have a direction. And it almost feels like that when they made the decision last summer to see this through, when they made the decision last summer to run it back and change the coach really as the main cosmetic change that they made, when they made that decision, it almost feels like they said to themselves, we are going to see this through no matter what. It doesn't matter how bad it gets. It doesn't matter the injuries that pile up. We are going to see this through. It does not feel like there is a reflection happening in those conference rooms during those meetings. That clip tells me this team is full steam ahead. That if they were deciding, decision made. But I don't get the sense that they were deciding. I get the sense that that decision was last summer. I get the feeling that when they decided to keep the big three and just change coaches and retool the roster on the fringes, that was their signal of, we're seeing this all the way to the finish line. But you got to be willing to admit when it's not working. You've got to be willing to admit where you're running out of time. We're 35 games into the season. We're just a handful of games away from the midway point. If at the midway point of the season, you're not a playoff team, I mean, I wonder if we can look at this, but I wonder how many times a team at the midway point of the NBA season have been outside of a playoff spot. Now, we'll see where they are when we get there, but they're a couple games out right now. So if we get to that midway point, how many teams go from being out of the playoff picture to then over the second half of the season getting into the playoff picture? I wonder how possible that is. Now, you would think with the talent level that this team has, it would be more possible than some of those other examples. But like I said yesterday, I don't believe this team has a leader. I don't believe this team has the right culture. And I'm sorry, I don't think Jimmy Butler is the person that fixes those two issues. He's trying to force his way out of Miami. He is trying to apparently force his way to one place and one place only, and that is the Phoenix Suns. You have reports out there of other teams being told through back channels, don't even try. Don't even call up Miami. Don't even attempt to put together an offer. He's not coming because he's not signing a contract extension. He'll leave at the end of the season. Now, there may be teams that would be willing to take that on and only have him play for a year, but we've got a situation here that needs to come to a head sooner rather than later. Jimmy Butler's 7-game suspension is nearing a conclusion. I don't think they want to reinsert Jimmy Butler back into their starting lineup. They want this done probably by the time that suspension concludes. So the clock is ticking on both the Suns and the Heat to figure this out. But that clip that they apparently are willing to give him $60 million a season, did they not learn from overpaying Bradley Beal? Did they not learn from taking on a contract like that? And this is going to be an extension given out. Did they not learn? Now, maybe they won't give out a no-trade clause. They'll learn from that. I don't think Jimmy Butler fixes all the Phoenix Suns' problems. I don't think Jimmy Butler fixes the core issues that are plaguing this team. That issue is they're not playing like a team. I don't think Jimmy Butler is synonymous with fixing that issue. But it appears as if the Phoenix Suns have picked a direction. And it feels like we need to be in full-blown checking Twitter, have your notifications on, be seeing what Shams is tweeting, be paying close attention because we could see this happen in the next couple of days. It's not what I would do. I think this team is beyond repair. I think this is broken to where you throw it out, not you go to the store and get replacement parts. But it appears there's only one way this is going to end, that the Phoenix Suns are going to see this through, that they are going to force this to the finish line. We'll see. They play another game tonight. We'll talk about that a little bit more in hour number 2 of the program. On the other side, how about we finally talk about some playoff football? Which underdog playing this weekend has the best chance to pull off the upset? We'll get into that next year on the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. I'll be the first one to admit when you learn something that you maybe didn't know previously. Producer Corey, you see all of the equipment that I have in here. The cameras. I got a big shining light in my face. I've got the laptop. I have my tablet that has the show rundown on it. And I have the sound in front of me. I normally use the tablet in front of me to have the show rundown. I got my teases written out. I know what we're doing, so I can kind of set us up for the next couple of segments. Like I can tell you in 15 minutes, we're talking about the Cardinals and their free agency pursuits. Like I have all of that handy, right? Things I need to read during the show. Well, sometimes I need to look at something else. I need to look at scores. Or if when we do the NFL Rewind or the NFL Look Ahead, I like to have the list of games in an order so that I can just go. And I flip back and forth. Well, it was during the last break, and I'm going to show this to you. I figured out I could split screen. So I didn't, I know I can do it at home. I didn't realize my tablet could do it. And I was kind of just messing around during the last break to try to see. Yeah, and now I've got split screen, so I don't have to go back and forth. Everything's right in front of me. This is fantastic. I mean, it only took 3 months of doing the show to figure that out, but that's a very good point. But so now I feel like a whole new radio host now. I feel like I don't have to fumble around because when you're doing this high wire act by yourself, I don't have somebody else talking to where I can research something. So I got to try to filibuster while also doing the research. Now we're going to be a whole new radio host here the rest of the week here on the show. We've got playoff football starting this weekend on Saturday. We have, I don't know how you wouldn't have seen this at this point, but the NFL is monitoring the absolutely terrible situation that is going on in LA over the last couple of days. And unfortunately, it looks like it's going to continue over the next couple of days with the fires that are just running rampant all over the place, just devastating places in LA. I mean, just the pictures, the images, are things that you would see CGI'd into a movie. Right? To think that that is real, that people are actually facing those types of circumstances right now is unfathomable to me. I have multiple friends that live in that area who I'm checking on a pretty regular basis to see if they need to get out of town. It is unbelievable what is going on. And I don't want to be the show that harps on current events, right? We are the escape. We are the reprieve. That's what we do here. We have fun. But my goodness, the scenes, the pictures, the video that you're seeing, it's so heartbreaking that there are people that have lost their lives. They're losing their houses. They're losing memories. I mean, it is just so heartbreaking to see these images. And the mundane part of it is there's an NFL football game that's supposed to be played in LA on Monday, and the NFL has said they're keeping an eye on it. If they are unable to play that game, and look, at this point, I don't know why you're going to play that game in LA on Monday. I get it. I understand that you want to be there for the community, and it could be a nice escape, but I think there's too much safety involved to even consider it. Well, the backup option is to play the game here. So if they do not play it in LA, it's going to be played here instead at State Farm Stadium in Glendale. Now, this happened before. If you remember during COVID, the 49ers had to come here and play some games here and do some practices here. And so this is not the first time that State Farm Stadium has been used as a backup plan for some type of event. And so we'll see. I would assume the NFL wants to make a decision one way or another probably by today. You've got people that have bought tickets. You've got people that are probably traveling in. There's just so many logistical hurdles that if you are going to move the game from LA to Arizona, that you'd like to give some leeway to everybody involved to be able to get there. The teams probably want to know what they're doing, and you would hate to do this like on Sunday or Saturday. So you would expect something to come down later on today. But there are 6 playoff games. I have a major announcement. Producer Corey, I need you to write this down. I have decided something very, very important for tomorrow's show. I said last week when we finished up the Schubert 6, I said that's it. We're not doing 6 picks during the postseason. I said we are not going to force ourselves to make those types of selections. I've changed my mind. I am going to make 6 selections. We've got 6 games to pick from. It doesn't all have to be the games. Maybe I'll take some player props, but I am not going to shy away from the challenge of picking in the postseason. I thought about it, and I said, you know what? I need to stay true to the segment. If there are at least 6 games to pick, we need to find something in those 6 games. Now, as we move on in the postseason and we have less games to pick from, then I think we will tailor it to how many games are available to us. All right, if we have 4 games the following weekend, then we'll make 4 picks. The 2 conference championship weeks, we'll make 2 selections, right? We'll scale it with the number of games. But there are 6 games this weekend. I'm making 6 picks. So book it. The Schubert 6 in its true form tomorrow here on the Friday edition of The Lunch Break. Okay, 6 playoff games this weekend. 6 underdogs. Which underdog do I feel has the best chance to pull off the upset? Here are the numbers. The Texans are 3-point underdogs at home against the Chargers. You have the Steelers as 9.5-point underdogs. 9.5 to the Baltimore Ravens. The Broncos, 8.5-point underdogs in Buffalo. The Packers, 4.5-point underdogs on the road in Philly. Washington getting 3 points on the road in Tampa Bay. And the Rams getting 1 at home. So you have the Rams and Houston as the two teams that are home underdogs. You kind of think that's where you would lean to, right? If you were going to pick an underdog to pull off the upset, you certainly don't think it would be Pittsburgh or Denver with big numbers and being on the road. You would lean towards Houston and the Rams. Well, let's evaluate each of these cases. We'll just go in chronological order. You've got Houston as a 3-point dog to the Chargers. And this, to me, this number is extremely indicative of how we felt about Houston all year long. That, yeah, they're going to win the division. Yeah, they're going to win double-digit games. Yeah, they're going to host a home playoff game. But this is not the team that got into the postseason last year that scared everybody. This is not the team that we watched last year with a rookie in C.J. Stroud that said, man, could they go on that magical run? Their offense doesn't feel as explosive. It doesn't feel like it's in that upper echelon like it was last year. And on the flip side, you have a Chargers team that's well coached. They're going to be well prepared. They have a quarterback who's playing very well this season. They have the things. You want to win a road playoff game? I know you need to have a quarterback. I know you need to have a passing game. I know that having a high-octane offense in 2025 is the way to go. But in the playoffs, if you want to win on the road, you want to win in cold weather as the playoff develops, right? You're going to Buffalo, you're going to Kansas City, you're going to Philadelphia. You want to play in those cold weather environments. What do you need? What travels well? Run game, defense. What does Jim Harbaugh like to do as the head coach of the Chargers? Run game and defense. So this feels like the ultimate stay away. You like the 3, but I don't think the Texans win the game. And so it's just, this one's a no-go for me. I'm not touching the Steelers and the Broncos. Those are big numbers. The Steelers completely fell off a cliff after they made the quarterback change and got hot. And the last month or so of the season, every big game they've played, they lost. Every big moment they had to prove what they were doing was sustainable, what they proved they were doing could carry over into the postseason. Lost to the Ravens a couple times, lost to the Eagles, lost to the Chiefs on Christmas. Every big spot they had, they crumbled. And Baltimore just seems to be playing out of their mind right now. I'm not doing that. The Broncos against the Bills, I'm intrigued by this, but it's Buffalo at home. And truthfully, I really think the only team that's going to trip up Buffalo, there are really 2 teams, would be Kansas City if they have to go there. But if I'm going to pick a team to go to Baltimore and win, or to Buffalo and win, you 480 and slip, it's going to be Baltimore. And so I like the Bills in that one. Then you get to the NFC. And the NFC, to me, is where all bets are off. Because I think the Packers could easily go in there and beat the Eagles, who haven't been with their quarterback for the last couple of weeks. There's some rust that needs to be shaken off there. It's not like the Eagles played a ton of super high-quality opponents down the stretch either, so they might be a little rusty as a team. But the one that just jumps off the page at me, the one that feels like the slam dunk, no doubt, is the Washington Commanders getting 3 on the road in Tampa Bay. I know how great of a story Tampa Bay is. I know how great of a story Baker Mayfield is. But you can't tell me that you think Tampa is a better team than Washington. You've got 2 defensive-minded head coaches. The quarterback matchup, I think, is in Washington's favor. You've got 2 coordinators who are going to get head coaching interviews across the board in Liam Cohn and Cliff Kingsbury. Washington won more games. Washington played, I think, some tougher opponents. And I'm riding with Jaden Daniels and Dan Quinn. I'm riding with Cliff Kingsbury. I'm riding with this Washington team. It's not an accident that they're in here. It's not an accident that they could have won the division. They've played good football all year long. They just happened to be in a division where you had a Philadelphia team that was really good, that put up a good record. They didn't get to play in a division like the Bucs where 10 wins get you a home playoff game. And so, for me, if I was power ranking them, I like the Commanders as my top underdog to win this week. I'm just all in on Jaden Daniels. And I just think Tampa has a ceiling. I watch them, and they're exciting at times, and they can drop 40 or 50 when you play a bad team. But I just think Baker Mayfield has a ceiling right now. I think they as a team have a ceiling right now. And I think that ceiling is nice. You get in, you beat up on a bad division. And let's face it, that division wasn't very good. Atlanta changed their quarterbacks in the middle of the season. The Saints were a mess injury-wise. The Panthers, while good down the stretch, had to bench the first overall pick from a few years ago in Bryce Young. So you took advantage. And what happens when you are a team in the Central? This is the same fate that the Texans, we think, are designed for. Is when you are able to beat up on a bad division, you get into the playoffs and you play some higher caliber opponents, you play some higher quality opponents, and you get exposed. And I think the Bucs get exposed this weekend. I think the Bucs get exposed on Sunday night. And I think it is Washington winning that football game because I think they have been down a tougher road to get into the postseason. I think with a rookie quarterback, a first-year head coach there in Dan Quinn, at least in Washington, his first year there. Cliff Kingsbury is the OC. A lot of gelling had to take place in a really short amount of time, and they pulled it off. And so a lot of credit to them, and I think that their run continues. So the Commanders would be my top underdog pick. I think the Rams getting one would be my second, just because I think that's the team you don't want to face. And I think the Vikings, coming off of Sam Darnold's poor performance on Sunday night, you have a feeling that maybe it's not as real as we all thought it was going to be. And McVay, Stafford in the playoffs, I'm scared of that as well. So those would be the two that I would keep an eye on. I don't like any in the AFC. I like all three in the NFC if you were going to pick one. But the Commanders would be my top underdog this weekend. We'll get more into the playoff football tomorrow here on the show. Coming up on the other side, how about we take our first look at the names that are available in free agency? How do the Cardinals' needs match up with what's going to potentially be out there? That's next in the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. Make sure you download the KDUS AM 1060 app. You can take the show with you on the go. You can also catch up on all the video stuff that we throw up on the KDUS AM 1060 YouTube channel as well. All that stuff feeds into the app. So the app, your one-stop shop for everything, lunch break and everything KDUS AM 1060. So go ahead and download the app today. In about 15 minutes or so, how much blame do we deserve? Yes, that's right. I'm turning the attention to us. How much blame is on us for where we stand with the Phoenix Suns? That coming up in about 15 minutes from now. But I said we would talk a little Cardinals free agency. One of my favorite tweets of the entire year came out today. It is one of the things I look forward to around this time. Mike Clay puts out, for those of you who don't know who Mike Clay is, senior writer for the NFL over at ESPN, and he puts together a free agency cheat sheet. He puts together a list of all of the players that are going to be available at the different positions in free agency, unrestricted, and he kind of organizes them loosely, at least at this stage, with the good players, the great players towards the top, and you can look at the depth options. So he put out that tweet earlier today and said the first run of the 2025 NFL unrestricted free agency cheat sheet is here. And so I thought, well, this is perfect. All the names in one place. We can do a little compare and contrast. We can say Cardinals need, what's available? Do we like the group? What are some names that we are going to circle to say, hey, that person might be really good for a team that has a bunch of needs and, oh, by the way, has $74.3 million in projected cap space to spend this offseason. Cardinals might be in the middle of some stuff. So let's see what they might be in the middle of. And so I think the place that we should start is edge rusher, right? Because it's one of the 5 pillars. If you missed yesterday's show, go out and check the podcast. We talked about the 5 pillars of building a team: quarterback, left tackle, wide receiver, edge, and corner. Where do the Cardinals stand when it comes to the 5 pillars? Need somebody to fill that edge group. You feel really good about everywhere else. Maybe the quarterback is up in the air. But for next season, you think you have that? Cardinals feel like they're in a really nice spot when it comes to the 5 pillars. But edge, the big glaring thing. And of the 5 pillars, you'd put edge towards the top, meaning somebody that can get after the quarterback, be a disruptor, right? You need that. You do not win in the NFL. How many games did we watch this season for the Arizona Cardinals? And you watching the game at home, or when we got back together here on this show on a Monday, did we talk about they just need to get after the quarterback more? They're making it too easy. They're allowing these quarterbacks to have all the time in the world to make plays or extend plays and just keep the defense on the field. It was over and over and over again. We said it. You watched it in real time, and we broke it down here on this show. So here are the names at the top of the list. It's Khalil Mack, Josh Sweat, Chauncey Golston, Chase Young, Brandon Graham, Emmanuel Agba, Charles Omenihu out of Kansas City, Derek Barnett in Houston, DeMarcus Lawrence, Marcus Davenport, Dante Fowler Jr., Azeez Ojulari. Those are some of the names that you have towards the top. And for those die-hard, long-standing listeners, can we say that for a show that's only been going for about 3 or 4 months? I think it's fair. For those of you who have been here since day one, you have been members of the lunch break. You take your lunch break with us every single day. You know that when the trade deadline rolled around, some of these names that I'm reading to you were names that we talked about. We talked about Chase Young. We talked about Azeez Ojulari. We talked about some of these guys being perfect trade candidates for the Arizona Cardinals. Well, now it's not going to cost draft picks. It's going to cost dollars. You want my initial gut feel when looking at this list? I don't love this market. I don't love this market for what the Cardinals need. The Cardinals need somebody to immediately come in and produce. They need somebody to come in and put up big numbers. Khalil Mack, how many years can you get out of Khalil Mack? Josh Sweat, What type of production are you going to get out of a Josh Sweat? Emmanuel Agba, a veteran. DeMarcus Lawrence, a veteran. Now, you do have some guys that I think are worth some flyers. I would be all over Azeez Ojulari. I would sniff around to see if Joe Tryon Shoyinka is interested. Chase Young is another name that I would put in that list. Marcus Davenport is interesting. These are guys on the younger side who, let's face it, they don't have the catalog, they don't have the resume, they don't have the back of the football card statistics that are going to force a massive overpay. But what I think the Cardinals need to do is get multiple pass rushers in this offseason. You've got Darius Robinson already in here to help with your defensive line. What I think the right course of action is get a veteran, but pair that veteran with a draft pick, either in the first round or the second round. You want a long-term solution, but you also want somebody that can come in and produce. And let's face it, what is going to help the Cardinals more than anything is having multiple options. If you had multiple guys that at least teams had to pay attention to, somebody's going to be able to break through. But if you only have one guy, if you only had Hassan Reddick, teams are going to focus on him. They're going to double him. They're going to take their running back or tight end and chip and take him out of play, and then they're going to look at the rest of the group and say, we'll let you beat us. So the Cardinals need volume. They need quality, but they also need quantity. And so unless you're going to make the big splash, unless you're going to get a Myles Garrett, unless you're going to get a Max Crosby, you're going to get the creme de la creme. You're going to get the upper echelon elite tier pass rusher is going to shake loose somewhere, is going to be disgruntled, wants a new contract, wants out, and you're the team ready to strike. Unless that happens, this is the list I have to work off of. And this list doesn't inspire a ton of confidence that you're going to find a bona fide, slam dunk, elite level pass rusher. Are you going to find a good quality pass rusher to add to your group? Oh, yeah, there's plenty. There's names across the board. They might get two of these guys. Carl Lawson had a nice bounce back year in Dallas. He might be a low risk, low dollar amount guy that you bring in. There are guys on this list that you bring one or two of these guys in and you pair them with a rookie, and now you maybe don't have a top end group that's super elite, right? Maybe you're not going to be in the conversation like we just said with Myles Garrett or Max Crosby, but your depth across the board, you might be able to put together one of the more deeper groups by pairing a couple of these free agents with a draft pick or two. That feels like the approach. Unless the big fish emerges, there isn't really a big fish available in free agency that wouldn't, I think, be a massive overpay. Now, one of the other trains we've been driving here is getting a running mate for Marvin Harrison Jr. And I have been on record, T. Higgins is the guy that I would like, but here are some of the other names that are going to be available. These are just some of the top names. Chris Godwin, Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen, maybe a reunion with Hollywood Brown, although I feel like that's unlikely. Amari Cooper, Deontay Johnson, DeAndre Hopkins, Elijah Moore, Brandon Cooks, Mike Williams. There's the top of the market. Now, you want to shop in the second tier? Josh Palmer, Tyler Boyd, Juju Smith-Schuster, DJ Chark. Maybe you bring back Zay Jones, Tim Patrick, Noah Brown. There's your next tier. We are going to drive the T. Higgins bus until the wheels fall off. Until T. Higgins is wearing another uniform or he returns to Cincinnati, that is who we are going to campaign for. That is, I don't want to call it item number one for me in the dream offseason for the Arizona Cardinals, but it's number two. It might be 1A. T. Higgins is the perfect second wide receiver to this team because it allows Marvin Harrison Jr. the space to continue to develop while not feeling the pressure. This team's got to win next year. This team won 8 games. This team had a chance down the stretch to make the playoffs. There are heightened expectations on this team. So why not go out and get somebody who's established, get somebody who's been there, done that, get somebody who's been through the grind of a postseason run, veteran, produces numbers, and as Marvin Harrison Jr. develops, you know that T. Higgins can operate in a system where there is another receiver that gets a heavy workload. He put up big numbers, was a huge target on a team that had Jamar Chase. So you don't worry about having that issue with target share. You don't worry about having that issue of feeding both of these guys targets. You have some offensive linemen, some interior guys that are interesting to me. But edge and wide receiver is where I focused. And truthfully, the edge market has some names that you recognize, some names that would be good additions. But I don't see this slam dunk like I do with T. Higgins. Now, maybe doing a deep dive on Khalil Mack's past couple of years or looking at some of these other guys, there might be somebody who jumps off the page at me. But there is nobody that feels, to me right now, the way T. Higgins feels at wide receiver. That just feels like a slam dunk. That just feels like a home run. Team needs to improve their offense. Team needs to get another wide receiver. They tried last offseason, didn't necessarily work. So they need somebody. They've got all the cap space to be able to do it. They've got another receiver on a rookie deal who's entering year 2. So you have at least 2 more seasons where you don't have to worry about a contract extension. Maximize this window while you've got it. And so T. Higgins just really jumps off the page to me. Now, the problem with that is, since he jumps off the page to me, he jumps off the page to a lot of teams. He jumps off the page to a lot of wide receiver needy teams. So there might be a little bit of a bidding war that ensues. Maybe the Bengals throw the franchise tag on him. I feel like that is highly unlikely, but it is certainly a possibility to keep an eye on. But this edge group that the Cardinals need to remake this coming offseason feels like it's going to be more of a quantity thing over a quality thing. That might have to be the approach for this team, unless a big fish shakes loose. 480-864-1060 is the phone number for you to join us here on the lunch break. Coming up on the other side, how much blame do we deserve? Yes, that's right. How much blame's on us for where we stand with the Phoenix Suns? That's next on the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. Drew Petzing had his interview today with the Chicago Bears. How likely is it that he could be out the door? Maybe more likely than you think. That coming up in about 15 minutes. Welcome back into the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. Chris Schubert here with you. We've got you up until 1 o'clock. We'll pass things off to Jim Rome from 1 to 4. That's right, Jim Rome here now on KDUS AM 1060 from 1 to 4 every single day, Monday through Friday. Super excited about that. So we will carry the baton until then. We've got you here on your lunch break during our lunch break. I asked a very bold question I said, how much blame do we deserve for where things stand with the Phoenix Suns? How much of this is on us? How much of this is on you? How much of this is on me? How much of this is on members of the media, podcast hosts, other radio hosts? How much blame do we deserve? What do I mean by that, you ask? It's pretty simple. We started this show right around the time the season started for the NBA, a couple weeks before. And I used this platform. I spoke to you about a season of redemption. I made the case that running it back was the right decision. I made the case that while not being on board originally, I could see the vision and I wanted to give it a fair shot. And I said that this team had a chance to make redemption the word that we thought of when discussing the 24-25 Phoenix Suns. I made that case to you. And I talked about how Devin Booker had a chance for redemption. Kevin Durant had a chance for redemption. And we went up and down the board of the redemption arc that this team could go on. And they got off to such a good start, feeding into that narrative. And that feels like a lifetime ago. Because now we're talking about a team that's not in the playoffs. We're talking about a team that might continue to mortgage their future in an effort to get rid of Bradley Beal and bring in Jimmy Butler and extend Kevin Durant and push this runway out another at least 2 more seasons to try to make it work. That is where we're at. How much blame do we deserve? Did we not read this correctly? What did we miss? Because you don't get to almost the midway point of the season. You don't get to being out of the playoffs. You don't get to a point of us contemplating trading Kevin Durant and hitting the reset button. We don't get to this place of talking about failure and giving up and reset. We don't get to this point with where this team's expectations were at the beginning of the season. We don't get here without missing something. We missed something. What was it? What did we not put our finger on? Because I'll tell you, normally you can point to a move that wasn't made or a roster hole that wasn't filled or hiring the wrong coach or not firing the coach or some type of tangible move that was or wasn't made. You can point to something. What can you point to with this team? At the end of last year, after getting swept, it felt like another pivot point. Feels like all we do with this team is have pivot points. But there was a pivot point. You just got swept out of the first round. You looked like a mess in the second half of the season. Your prize for that, getting swept out of the first round. You could have doubled down, or you could have moved on. Gut reaction, saw the writing on the wall and said, this just doesn't feel right for me. Something's amiss here. You got players that are getting older. It just doesn't seem like it's working. These guys are too injured. We don't live in a world where teams have big threes anymore. It's dynamic duos. That's the way it works. This is an old school way of doing things. You tried it. It didn't work. Cut your losses before it gets worse. That was my immediate reaction after last season. I was on record saying that I think they're just going to continue down this cycle and it's going to be a mistake. That I would get out. They didn't do that. They fired the coach. They got rid of Frank Vogel, who I've seen a lot of it on social media. People are saying this man deserves an apology. You might be right. This goes beyond a coach thing at this point. But they got rid of the coach. They addressed the needs. Everybody wanted to scream until they were blue in the face. They wanted to call into radio shows. They wanted to tweet on social media. Everybody wanted to talk about a point guard. Everybody wanted to talk about the thing that held this team back. Wasn't all the time that was missed. It wasn't not playing team back. They just didn't have a point guard. They just gave away all those fourth quarter games because they didn't have a veteran point guard who didn't turn the ball over, who could handle the rock. That's who they didn't have. That's what was missing. Well, they went out and got Tyus Jones as a second apron team. They went out and got Monte Morris to be another veteran point guard. So not only did they hear you when you talked about the problem, but they addressed it in a way that I don't think we thought was addressable, if that's even a word. Nobody liked the defensive-minded head coach. You've got Kevin Durant, you've got Devin Booker, you've got Bradley Beal, and you're leaning into defense with those three guys? No, you need to lean into high octane. You need to lean into 7 seconds or less. You need to be an upstart, upbeat, up-tempo, offensive-minded team. Okay. You flipped and got an offensive-minded head coach. Team needed some better defense in the playoffs. Needed a wing player, 3-and-D type. What did you do in the draft? You got Ryan Dunn. Every criticism that we had about this team at the end of last season, they addressed. They didn't just completely run it back. They ran it back with the core, but made the tweaks that everybody saw with their own two eyes and felt that they needed to make. So you can't blame them for not trying. They made all the tweaks. So there isn't a move that we can look back on to say that's what we missed. They made all the moves that we wanted them to make. They made all the moves that were available to them with the cap situation they found themselves in. So how much blame do we deserve? What responsibility do we bear? And this is an extension of something I said yesterday. The thing we missed, the thing that we probably should have realized in the second half of last year, the thing that we probably should have realized when this team got swept out of the first round, is they lacked a leader. And I don't want to call anybody's leadership into question, because I know Kevin Durant will go back and forth with people on social media. He might DM me. I know of a radio host that he got into a DM conversation with. It was respectful, but he had a conversation. I don't want to do that because I don't want to question his leadership. He is a leader. He is just a different kind of leader than what this team needs right now. This team needs a very specific leader. They need somebody to get vocal. And as I said yesterday, I don't know where it comes from. So the blame that we deserve is not seeing that soon enough. The blame we deserve is for not identifying that as the flaw this team had. That this team, culture-wise and leadership-wise, is broken. They made all the right moves. Again, through the prism of running it back, they made all the necessary tweaks. We didn't miss a move that they made or didn't make. We missed something that's hard to see, but as things deteriorate, you see it very quickly and you see it very clearly. And that is, who's the leader? Because a leader calls a players-only meeting right now. A leader allows everybody to air out their grievances. And it might be loud. There might be some screaming. It might be very tense at times. But you use that moment to re-galvanize. You use that moment to re-lock as a team and to focus on your North Star, which is, we think this team, talent-wise, can win a championship. So we deserve the blame for not seeing that part of this. Because the rest of it happened basically the perfect way you would want it to work. So I'm not going to fault you for believing in Tyus Jones. I'm not going to fault you for believing in Ryan Dunn. I'm not going to fault you for putting expectations on this team when they made all the necessary tweaks that we thought were necessary. I will blame us for not catching on to the culture issue, to not catching on to the leadership issue, and not bringing it up sooner. That's where we failed. Talking about a season of redemption, you need somebody to carry that torch. You need somebody to be the messenger for that message. And I just think this team lacks somebody to do that. Devin Booker wasn't that when he was here all by himself. Kevin Durant hasn't been that because of the numerous stops that he's made. It's not Bradley Beal. It's not the coach who's been here for less than half a season. There isn't that person. That's what's missing. That is what the missing ingredient is to this team that wasn't addressed in the offseason. Just a bunch of individuals playing basketball. So the blame that we deserve in all of this is that we ignored that. We didn't give that enough credence. We didn't address that in the summer. We just thought it was a roster issue. We just thought it was a turnover issue, a coaching issue. We thought it was just all on the court stuff. I don't think so anymore. This goes beyond the 4 quarters. You don't get to this point, this level of rock bottom, with the losses this team has had over the last couple days, if there aren't bigger issues at play. On the other side, hour number 2, 480-864-1060 is the phone number for you to join the conversation. They interviewed him today. How likely is it that he goes? That's next on the lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Hour number 2 of the lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Appreciate you being here today on this edition of the show. We were going to dive into some Drew Petzing news interviewing officially today with the Chicago Bears. I still plan on getting to that here at the top of the hour, but some major NFL breaking news. We can add another team to the list that is searching for a general manager. The Jets, the Titans, and now the Raiders. Tom Telesco fired as the general manager of the Raiders. They earlier this week fired Antonio Pierce as their head coach. They are now wiping the slate completely clean, and they will be bringing in a new general manager. They will be bringing in a new head coach, and you can bet every dollar you got that Tom Brady is going to be heavily involved in this process on both who the GM is going to be and on who the head coach is going to be. We've already heard the reports that Tom called Bill Belichick, that is, to see if he would be interested in the Raiders gig. There were a bunch of reports that Tom is going to be involved in this process and as a minority owner has the ear of Mark Davis in this process. It is not just going to be a head coach search now. They will also be looking for a GM. So you would assume GM search first, head coach search after. The Jets are conducting them both at the same time because they are hiring them both individually. They are not doing it the way other teams do it, where you hire the GM hires the coach. They have a different structure. We'll see what the Raiders choose to do, but they are not going to allow Tom Telesco to be a part of that process any longer. He is also out the door there in Vegas with the Raiders, and so it is a complete reset there in Las Vegas. The Raiders and Jets, the only teams who have both a GM and a head coach opening. The Titans still have their head coach. They just moved on from their GM. So of the 3 GM openings, now 2 of them have both a GM and a head coach opening. All the other head coach openings have a GM in place that, at least at this point, appear to be locked into place. One of those GMs that appears to be locked into place is Ryan Poles in Chicago with the Chicago Bears. It looks, for all intents and purposes, is that he's not going anywhere, that he is going to stay, and that if a candidate wants to replace him with their own general manager, that's almost a non-negotiable for those candidates, that they're out. They are not going to make it to the next round. But the Chicago Bears today interviewed officially Drew Petzing for their open head coach vacancy. I believe that makes it 2 official interviews that this team has had. They have interviewed Drew Petzing today, and they also interviewed Mike Vrabel for their head coaching opening. Now, they have a ton, and I mean a ton, of requests out there. They've got requests for Anthony Weaver, who I believe they might have just finished up an interview with. They are expected to talk to Matt Campbell of Iowa State. They are expected to interview Cliff Kingsbury. They are expected to interview Ben Johnson. They, as we mentioned, interviewed Drew Petzing. They have interviewed or are going to interview everybody. They are going to talk to everybody in this search. They've got Pete Carroll coming up today, Mike Kafka, the Giants OC, coming up today, Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn this Saturday. They have interviews all over the place. So, with Drew Petzing completing his interview today with the Chicago Bears, how realistic is it that Drew Petzing might get the gig? Well, we talked earlier this season about Drew Petzing's name popping up on a bunch of potential head coach candidates list. And we said this shouldn't come as a surprise. Offense is the way teams are going. Drew Petzing has overseen some solid offenses, and he has shown an ability to make more with less, and that's going to be enticing to some teams. And I said that Drew Petzing feels like he is going to get interviews this cycle, but it's next cycle where he really strikes if the Cardinals have another good year on offense. Kyler Murray takes the next step. They make the playoffs. Just like Cliff Kingsbury is the hot name right now, just like Ben Johnson, Drew Petzing will enter that tier, that stratosphere, if the team has another good year. But this is kind of him getting his feet underneath him doing these interviews. That was my read of the situation. I wonder if it's more likely than we think that he gets this gig in particular, the Bears gig. Because let's face it, you can interview Pete Carroll, you can interview Mike Vrabel, you can interview Aaron Glenn, you can interview whoever you want on the defensive side or those who have a defensive slant to them. You just did that. Most of the time, the pendulum swings in the other direction. We had a defensive-minded head coach that didn't work. We're going to flip to the offensive side. That's normally the way these coaching searches go. Now, the Bears are unique in that they don't do anything normally. So you have to maybe caution against that. But conventional wisdom tells us that this is going to be an offensive geared search. It's why Ben Johnson is at the top of the list. It's why he is the dream candidate amongst many. But who would be number two? What if Ben Johnson, just like he did last offseason, hits the circuit, interviews in a bunch of places? He interviewed in Carolina. He interviewed in Washington. The Washington job was all but his. And he returned to Detroit. Just didn't feel like there was a right fit for him. What if he picks Jacksonville? What if he doesn't take the opening in Chicago? Well, who's then next up on that list? And this is where I think Drew Petzing might slide right into that number 2 spot and might be the backup option. Because I'll tell you what, I take Drew Petzing over Giants offensive coordinator Mike Kafka. Did you watch the Giants this year? And I know they didn't have any quarterback play, but they could do nothing. So you would expect Drew Petzing to have a leg up there. And if this search is geared more towards offense, now maybe Todd Monken gets involved. That's a name that would threaten Drew Petzing. Joe Brady is another name that I know the Bears are going to interview. That's the Bills' offensive coordinator. I think those two names would move in front of Petzing, but what if they don't want a gig? What if there's another gig that opens up for them? You now have the Raiders as a landing spot. We learned that in the last couple of days with a new GM. That new GM might come in and really like Todd Monken. Might really like Joe Brady. Might really like Drew Petzing. So you have a situation where I think we need to take this more seriously than we did previously. And maybe that's my fault for not taking it as seriously. Because I read it as get your feet wet, take a couple interviews, but I don't know if your stature is going to be there. But look around. You have a bunch of teams that are going to want to invest in offense. I think the Raiders are going to look for an offensive-minded head coach. They went with the defensive guy in Pierce, the CEO type, the culture type. That didn't work. You might go hot young coordinator, offensive side of the ball, bring in a quarterback, sign Justin Fields, and off to the races. Jacksonville, I know they went that direction with Doug Peterson, but they still want to get more out of Trevor Lawrence. They're going to be looking at offense. I think the Jets are going to be looking at offense. They just did the defensive thing with Robert Saleh. I think if they don't go with the CEO type, that they might go offensive side of the ball. The Patriots just went defense with Gerard Mayo. If they don't get Mike Vrabel, what does that look like? The Saints, they might be interested in getting more out of Derek Carr. So you can see how there might be more openings that skew towards the offense than there are offensive coordinator type coaches that fit those molds, which is ergo how Drew Petzing moves up the board. I don't think it's likely. I still think Ben Johnson is the favorite there. If I had to guess right now, Vrabel goes to New England. Ben Johnson goes to Chicago. And then you have the Raiders. You have the Saints, the Jags, and the Jets fighting over Aaron Glenn, fighting over Cliff Kingsbury, fighting over Todd Monken, maybe Anthony Weaver. Those names potentially who they're fighting over. If I had to guess right now, those two I think are pretty locked in. I think Vrabel's going to New England. I wouldn't be surprised if we learn that in the next couple of days. And then I also wouldn't be surprised to see Ben Johnson go to Chicago, checking those two teams off, leaving us with 4. But Drew Petzing's candidacy is real. And whatever you think of Drew Petzing, and I know many of you were frustrated with him throughout the season. I certainly was frustrated with him as well. There was some schematic stuff that wasn't very great. There was some play calling stuff that wasn't very great. Just felt like there wasn't aggressiveness at times. Felt like extremely conservative, complacent at times where you needed to dial it up. I get it. But this guy oversaw an offensive turnaround. Statistically, this Cardinals offense probably ranks higher than you thought it did after watching what this season was. And another year with Marvin Harrison Jr., another year for Kyler Murray in the system, adding somebody like a T. Higgins potentially. You can all of a sudden dream of this offense being even better, being a top 10 offense, which, by the way, they were just on the doorstep of being. The party of top 10 offenses, the Cardinals, on the front lawn. Didn't get invited in, didn't get the invite, but they're really close. They're in the neighborhood. They got lost. The directions, GPS didn't get them there, but they're close. And if you add more talent to this offense, more stability in the system, you could see this offense be a top 10 system next year, as long as Kyler Murray plays to the potential. So that would be a loss. It would be a new voice. And with Gannon being a defensive mind, it's not his offensive system that's trickling down. So a new person comes in, a new voice, new verbiage maybe, a new system altogether. It can then cause some rust to form. It could be slow moving in the first couple of weeks. This team can't afford that. They got to hit the ground running next year. And so this is something to really seriously keep an eye on. Now, right now, he's only interviewed with the Bears. We don't know if he's going to get asked to go someplace else. But you got a bunch of other teams that I think could look offensive side of the ball, and Drew Petzing's name is going to come up in those conversations. 480-864-1060 is the phone number for you to join the show. You can also hop into the comments on the KDUS AM 1060 YouTube channel as well. On the other side, we get back into some Suns basketball. Is tonight. It's one of my least favorite phrases in sports because I think it is overused. I think it is not used properly. But we will discuss next, is tonight a must-win for the Phoenix Suns? That's next on the lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. It is one of my pet peeves in discussing sports with people. The phrase must win. Unless it's an elimination game of a playoff series or a regular season game where if you lose, you are out of the playoffs, I refrain from using the term must win. I don't want to be literal guy, but it's not a must win. Your season will go on. You are still mathematically alive. You don't have to win this game. There are no season-altering ramifications to losing this specific game if it doesn't carry that weight of win or go home. But tonight's game has a certain feel to it for the Phoenix Suns that is close to what that feeling would be like if this was a true must-win elimination-style game, doesn't it? Don't you feel like you got to see something tonight? Don't you feel like you need to see something from a team that's lost 8 of their last 10, that's lost 5 of their last 6? Don't you feel like there needs to be some energy at home tonight? Don't you need to see a convincing, they're a 5.5-point favorite tonight against the Atlanta Hawks at home? Don't you feel like you need to see just a little something tonight? If this team is truly going to go out and trade for Jimmy Butler, if they're going to send Bradley Beal out the door in order to do so, if they are going to triple down on this season, then you want to see something tonight. You want to see them, I don't want to say convincingly win, but you want to see them show that there's some fight, show that there's some energy, show that they are playing team basketball. You want to see that tonight. Because if you don't win tonight, again, going into tonight's contest, 8 of their last 10, losers. 5 of their last 6, losers. The 2 wins that they have in their last 11 games or so, the win on Monday against Philadelphia, where we changed the lineup around, and the return game after getting blown out in Denver the game prior. The 117-90 loss in Denver, they come back home and they win 110-100. Since then, the bad loss to Dallas, the game they had a chance in Golden State and gave that one away. The worst loss of the season, I think, maybe the Charlotte loss is up there as well. The home loss to Memphis. Because there's no excuse for that one. The Charlotte one, while I'm not saying I accept any of these excuses, road game, second leg of a back-to-back, you're home to play Memphis after being in Golden State your previous game. Memphis didn't have anybody. Memphis, without their 2 leading rebounders, Ja Morant didn't play, and you lost at home. You went to Indiana and lost by 18, and then you beat Philadelphia, and then you followed that up with the 11-point loss to Charlotte the other night that has us in a spot of thinking this is rock bottom, thinking this is the end of the line. So, yeah, I got to see something tonight from the Phoenix Suns. Because you can trade for Jimmy Butler, but I don't know if that fixes stuff. So I got to see it from the team. You're not in a playoff spot right now. You don't have the wiggle room to give games away. You got to win games at home, no matter who's on your schedule. You got to start to close the gap. You got to start to inch closer and closer to being back into the play-in tournament. This isn't a team that is trying to find themselves. They're the 7 and 8 seed, what we all expect by the time they settle down, they find themselves that they'll be up at the 2 or 3 seed. This is a team that isn't in the playoffs right now. This is a team that is thinking about making 2 massive moves in order to fix this. They're considering moving Bradley Beal, and we wonder if that's going to require moving the 2031 draft selection in order to do so. But then also trading for Jimmy Butler and apparently extending Jimmy Butler. Here's Kendrick Perkins of ESPN, former NBA center. Here's what he's hearing. Now, he's no Shams Charania. He's no Brian Windhorst. He's no Woj. But he talks to people. He knows people. He's able to get into some of these players' inner circle and learn some information. Here's Kendrick Perkins on Jimmy Butler and the Phoenix Suns.
It's about two things, okay? It's about money, right? And from my sources, they're telling me that the Suns have a 2-year, $121 million extension waiting on Jimmy. Okay?
I believe it.
All right. I mean, I ain't no genius, but that's like 60 a year, okay?
Woo, somebody is drunk over there.
Hold on. Keep a cool booty. All right. Here's the next thing. Here's the next thing, okay? It's about relationships. And the relationship is Jimmy Butler and Kevin Durant. Now, I told you this about 2 weeks ago when we made this bet that not only do Phoenix, yes, the organization, they want him. You know why? Because Kevin Durant wants Jimmy Butler. And if he does get Jimmy Butler, which I believe he will, they're both going to sign contract extensions. KD is going to sign as well. Now, what happens with Devin Booker in the near future, I don't know. But at the end of the day, this would make sense.
If you were going to give out a 2-year, $121 million contract extension, if you're going to pay Jimmy Butler nearly $60 million a season, if you are going to then extend Kevin Durant, if you are going to attempt to keep this going, to extend this window, despite everybody pointing at all the warning signs to tell you to get off the ride, if you're going to do all that, you got to show me something tonight. You got to show me that that's worth at least considering. Because if you lose tonight at home with all of this noise, I mean, this is the perfect spot to go out there, have a convincing victory at home, and get people to believe once again. You make the lineup changes, it works in Philadelphia. You lose to Charlotte. Everybody's wondering if this is rock bottom. Everybody's wondering if this is where we hit the end of the road, hit the reset button, time to be done. With all the noise, all the rumors, all the questions being thrown your direction, this is the night where you go out and you have a convincing victory. Because then you allow people to, just for a second, believe again. Maybe trading for Jimmy Butler might fix this. Maybe it is a good idea to get out of the Bradley Beal business. Maybe it is good to get that no trade clause off our books. Maybe it is good to trade for Jimmy Butler so that we know we can extend Kevin Durant and we don't have to worry about what the future looks like. A win tonight could start to maybe convince some of you of that. I remain unconvinced. That you lose tonight? Why are we doing any of this? Why are we going to pay Jimmy Butler potentially $60 million a season if what Kendrick Perkins said in that clip is true? You're going to pay somebody $60 million a season to come over here and extend Kevin Durant and run this back again? And don't think I didn't hear the end of that cut where Kendrick Perkins says, I don't know what that means for the future of Devin Booker. I heard that very loud and clear. If there's one person of this big three that this team should be investing in, it should be Devin Booker. He's the youngest, and the runway is the longest. So if there's anybody that should be at the center of what this team is trying to do, the center of their plans, it should be Devin Booker. It should not be Kevin Durant. It should not be Bradley Beal. The person at the center of both the short and long-term decision-making of this organization should be Devin Booker. Now, that does not mean Devin Booker should be here long-term. But we do not do all of this to make Kevin Durant happy. He's going to be another year older next year. Jimmy Butler is going to be another year older next year. Jimmy Butler does not play in all 82 games. He doesn't even play in 60 to 70 games. You are not fixing a problem by bringing Jimmy Butler in here. But if you want to explore any of that, you can't lose tonight's basketball game. If you dig the hole even deeper tonight and still choose to go down this path, then I think we need to start to wonder if there are the right people in charge here in Phoenix. If the people making the decisions know what they're doing. 480-864-1060 is the phone number for you to join the conversation. We've got about a half hour left here in this radio program here today. On the other side, I just said must win, one of my least favorite phrases in sports. How about one of my favorite phrases in my favorite sport? Mystery team. There's a mystery team involved with Roki Sasaki? Could it be the Arizona Diamondbacks? That's next here in the lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Welcome back into the lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. You can also catch us on the KDUS AM 1060 app. You can catch up on all your favorite shows. We've got the YouTube stuff over there as well. So all the stuff that we do on the show here today, maybe you missed something, we've got you covered. Just go to KDUS AM 1060 on YouTube. We chop everything up into individual segments over there, and you can catch up on the video version of the show. So that is something to look forward to as well. Appreciate you being here. We've got you up until the top of the hour. It would not be a show for me unless I snuck in some baseball talk. And it's been relatively quiet, I would say, over the last couple of days in baseball world. I think that you have the kind of calming of things since Juan Soto signed, since Garrett Crochet got traded. It's just been relatively quiet. Corbin Burns off the board, obviously. So things are slow moving at this stage after we had a lot of activity, a flurry of activity pretty quickly, right? There is one cloud that is hanging over Major League Baseball, and it's something that's going to resolve itself pretty quickly. It's going to get taken care of, and it has a deadline. Unlike the rest of free agency, which can just go on and on forever, and guys could wait until the season starts and they don't have to sign immediately, there is something that has a deadline, and that is the Roki Sasaki sweepstakes. The Japanese pitcher who was posted, who has met with 7 teams. And my favorite part of all of this is that there is reportedly a mystery 8th team that has entered the fray. So he's met with 7 teams. He met with the Dodgers. He met with the Cubs. He met with the Giants. He met with the Rangers, the Padres, the Yankees, the Mets. Those are your 7 teams that got a chance to meet, interview, present for, talk to Roki Sasaki. But reportedly, there is one other club that is not one of those 7 that have held talks with Roki Sasaki and his agent. So we get to use one of my favorite terms in all of sports. We have a mystery team on our hands. We have a team that isn't being talked about, that apparently met with Roki Sasaki, that is in this mix. So now it is 8 teams deep. And we only have until January 23rd for a conclusion. So we have 14 days, 2 weeks. This has to be done in the next 2 weeks. So, just like they were for Corbin Burnes, could it be the Arizona Diamondbacks being that mystery team? Now, we don't know about that mystery team, but I'm going to put a couple of pieces of information together to try to convince you that they are the mystery team, to get your hopes up, to ultimately potentially be let down if he goes someplace else. Now, I'm going to say this at the beginning. He's going to the Dodgers or he's going to the Padres. That is where all indicators have been pointing towards. With the moves the Dodgers are making, with the trades that they have made, there are some signs that they feel like they're getting him. The Padres feel like they are right there in the conversation. That's where it feels. So it feels like no matter what, we're going to be seeing a lot of Roki Sasaki here in Phoenix, Arizona. But could the Diamondbacks be that mystery team? Well, let me pair 2 pieces of information together to make the case. We know that early reports indicated, now they've pushed back on this since, but there were some early reports saying that Sasaki didn't necessarily love the way he was treated in the media. And so he might have preferred a smaller market where he won't have a bunch of cameras, microphones, media constantly in his face because of his bad experience previously. Well, that's a nice check mark for a small market operating team like the Arizona Diamondbacks, because it's not LA, it's not New York, it's not Chicago. You're not going to have that type of media presence that you would here that you would have in those other cities. So that's piece of information number 1 that says the Diamondbacks could fit this mystery team build. And then number 2, we know how extensive scouting-wise the Diamondbacks have been in the sweepstakes. When Sasaki was first posted, one of the first teams that was mentioned was the Arizona Diamondbacks, and how they have heavily scouted Sasaki. That they have done their homework on the right-hander. And so we know they're interested. We know they've done the work. They've done the homework. They've put in the time. They've put in the effort. And they might fit that small market feel that Sasaki reportedly might be looking for. Now, one of the other things he's looking for is a place where he can develop as a pitcher. And he's going to maybe look at the way these teams have developed pitchers in the past. Well, the Diamondbacks have Zach Gallen they can point to. They can point to Merrill Kelly coming back from international play and seeing how well he has transformed. Brennan Pfaadt, Ryan Nelson. You can look at Corbin Burnes wanting to sign here. All of these things that the Diamondbacks can make the sales pitch for to say, hey, we're an interesting fit. We're a team that makes some sense. And so they had these meetings. 20 teams apparently tried to talk to Roki Sasaki. They submitted proposals. The last thing we heard was that he had returned to Japan, that being Sasaki, to meet, to ponder after all these meetings, and that apparently he's going to come back to the States here soon, potentially even now, and meet with the finalist team. So we'll see. But now we have a mystery team afoot. And it's not one of the 7. So I know everyone thinks Chicago might be a nice landing spot for him, but they're listed, so they're not the mystery team. And so you know what? Maybe it's me being hopeful, or maybe it's me trying to connect dots that don't exist, but I look at all the information that we've got. And I wonder if the Diamondbacks, just like they were with Corbin Burnes, because remember, nobody thought the Diamondbacks were signing Corbin Burnes. Nobody thought that was in the cards. All of a sudden, middle of the night, tweets get dropped. The Diamondbacks are signing Corbin Burnes. The Diamondbacks have landed the big free agent starting pitching fish. They got him. Ace, front of their rotation. Out of nowhere. Went to the end of the pool that they've never been to before. The most money they've ever given to a free agent. Out of nowhere. Not even a hint that they were talking to Corbin Burnes. And so if they're able to keep that under wraps, what's to say that they couldn't do the same thing here? That they could keep their pursuits of Roki Sasaki behind closed doors and incredibly secret. They kept the top free agent starting pitcher. They kept that completely in the dark. We didn't know until it happened that they were even talking to him. It came together in a matter of minutes. So who's to say that they couldn't be the mystery team for this? That they couldn't be pursuing another big-time free agent pitcher, which would make it so much easier to explore trading a couple of their starters. Again, I don't think it's likely. I think he's going to end up in LA. I think the front of that rotation next year, I mean, when you think of the National League West, the Diamondbacks are trying to play. They're trying to cannonball into the deep end of the pool. They are not shying away from taking on the Dodgers. But when you think of Ohtani coming back to pitch this year, you think of Yamamoto in his second year in Major League Baseball, Roki Sasaki, Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow. I mean, you could put all 5 of those guys in the All-Star game next year. That's how good this Dodgers rotation is going to be. Now, the Diamondbacks have a pretty good rotation. I would put it toe-to-toe with anybody in the league, because there's a health concern with a lot of those guys for the Dodgers. But if he ends up with the Dodgers or the Padres or the Giants who have met with him, then Roki Sasaki, whether he's on the Diamondbacks or not on the Diamondbacks, is going to have an impact on this team in 2025 and beyond. And it doesn't cost any money, just international free agent dollars. So you don't have to go to lengths that you did for Corbin Burnes, which is what made the Corbin Burnes move so shocking, because they went to a place that they have never gone to before. They surpassed Zach Greinke's deal, $210 million, the biggest contract that Mike Hazen has ever given out. This, $4 or $5 million. And then he's under team control for, 6 seasons? And he's 23 years old. And so this is the big sweepstakes right now in Major League Baseball. And not everybody's involved. You have all the big fish. You have the Yankees. You have the Mets. You have the Dodgers. You have the Padres, Giants, Rangers, and Cubs. They're all involved with this as well. And then you have a mystery team. And I wonder, and maybe it's me being optimistic, because I would love to be able to see Roki Sasaki pitch every 5th or 6th day for the Arizona Diamondbacks. And so maybe I'm setting myself up to be disappointed when he ultimately does go to the Dodgers or the Padres. But I wonder if the Arizona Diamondbacks are that mystery team. Because they've been it once already. Who's to say that they can't be it again? And so we only have 14 days. This will get solved in the next 2 weeks. There is a deadline on this. This is not like other free agent pursuits. This will get done. This will get handled. And I think once Sasaki comes back to the United States, if he isn't here already, it will happen pretty soon after meeting with those finalists, after getting that final conversation with everybody. 480-864-1060 is the phone number for you to join the conversation. We've got one more segment, so your last chance to join us on the phones. We've got the Orange Bowl tonight. I have to ask producer Corey if I have a problem. He will determine if it is a problem. And there was a basketball game last night that I want to get into. So all of that in the leftovers. We'll do it next. KDUS AM 1060. Final segment of the program. Jim Rome at the top of the hour. Yes, that's right. Jim Rome now here on KDUS AM 1060. So stay tuned for that at the top of the hour. We wrap up today's edition of the lunch break the way we wrap up every edition of the lunch break with the leftovers. All of the stories that maybe we just want to touch on here on the show that we want to make sure that we get to, we jam them in here to the final segment. We're working on the dartboard. I looked at a couple yesterday to see what we could do because, listen, if we're going to do this, I want to do this right. I don't want it to be just like a $5 one that's plastic. If we're going to do this, we want to do it right for the leftovers. And so at some point, we're going to institute the dartboard of topics, and then we will throw the dart at the board for the leftovers, and then we will have our conversation about it. But in the meantime, I will still get to pick what we talk about, and let's start with, do I have a problem? So we just were talking baseball in the last segment, so I'll start with this baseball story. So I am in a fantasy baseball league. Started last night. It is a 66-round fantasy baseball draft that has a 10-hour clock per pick. And it is a salary cap league, so the players have salaries associated with them, and it's a dynasty league, which means these rosters we're going to keep for a little bit, and players have contracts. And it is supposed to be very realistic. It's supposed to feel like you're a general manager putting a team together and you have some constraints. Is it a problem that I am doing a 66-round fantasy baseball draft? Does that look bad on me? And I know nobody cares about fantasy, specifically my fantasy team, but I'm wondering, is this a problem? It's a 24-team league, so there's 23 other people in it with me. I'll pull the curtain completely back. I am currently up right now. I just got the notification that I am up in the first round. I had the 19th pick. The board has not gone the way that I wanted it to. So I'm not going to use all 10 hours, but I'm going to use a decent amount of time to make my selection. And so I just wanted to gauge if maybe, I'm sure there are people out there that think 66 rounds. I don't even know if I can name 66 baseball players. I get it. It's my favorite sport. I don't do this for other fantasy leagues. I just have regular fantasy leagues for football in particular. But for this, I love it. I love it. It's fun, and it's a lot of work, and I have to make a decision here when we get off the air of who I'm going to take. The clock just started, so I technically have 10 hours, but I don't think I'll take all 10. I think I'll take probably 10 minutes post the show. But okay, so not a problem. It's okay. It's close. We're bordering on it being a problem. So because here's where I think it becomes a problem. Because this is going to take weeks. Like, this draft is not going to be done. Like, I would venture a guess to say that when we are conference championship week in football, that we will still be discussing this on the show, and I'll let everybody know where we're at in the draft. I'll keep everybody updated in the leftovers. We're drafting minor leaguers and prospects, and we'll build together a team. I'm very confident in my GM abilities, but here's where I think it becomes a problem. If it impacts other stuff, right? If I have to not eat dinner or something because I'm on the clock and I need to make a decision, like if I'm able to, you know what? I'm going to eat dinner, be fine, and I'll sit down. I'll maybe take 15, 20 minutes, make my selection, and then I know I've got forever until I go again, then I think I'm fine. I think as long as it doesn't impact my day-to-day life, I think I'm okay. And I think right now I'm okay. I will make my selection on the app here in a little bit, but 66 rounds. So if you think your fantasy league is too much, there you go. How about that for you? 66 rounds. I have to make 66 selections. Haven't even made one yet. We have the first college football playoff semifinal tonight, the Orange Bowl, Notre Dame, Penn State. I'm fascinated by this matchup for two different – it's the same reason, but it applies to both teams. Because I think both of these programs suffer from a very similar narrative. They just can't win the big one, right? I think Notre Dame, we're all super – I don't want to say surprised, but I think we're excited by the job that Freeman has done since taking over for Brian Kelly. He's really done a nice job being the coach there, and he has them in a position. They just beat Georgia. They could very easily win it all. But it just feels like everyone's waiting for the other shoe to drop when it comes to Notre Dame football. The same with Penn State. This is kind of what James Franklin does. They flirt with the big time. They flirt with the big stage. They flirt with the bright lights. But then when they get there, they don't look like the same Penn State team. So one of these two teams is going to get to the dance. They're going to get to the brightest lights. They're going to get to the biggest stage. And they're going to have an opportunity to change that narrative. Could you imagine if Notre Dame or Penn State wins the national championship? Be huge for whatever program it is. It would be huge for James Franklin. It would be huge for Notre Dame to finally win one in this new era of college football. It'd be great for either of these programs. So that's what I'm fascinated about tonight, because you have two teams that need to win a championship. It would change the narrative about their programs, and yet both teams also have the narrative of failing in these spots, failing in these moments. Do I need to remind everybody of Notre Dame playing against Alabama in the national championship? Do I need to remind everybody of the resume that James Franklin has in big games in the Big Ten? And so you have two coaches, you have two teams, two programs that have a narrative against them of not coming through in these spots, and you have two programs where if they win, it is going to mean everything for the future of their program. One of those narratives has a chance to be put to bed tonight, and for the other, the narrative will continue after this game. So that's what fascinates me about the Orange Bowl tonight. I mean, I've got practice tonight. I am coaching tonight, so this is going to be sort of the checking in on these things as they happen. The Suns game I'll be keeping an eye on. We'll be keeping an eye on the Orange Bowl. The club softball team that I coach for my daughter, we are back on the practice field tonight. After we practiced on Tuesday, we played in a tournament last weekend. So I don't care what the weather is outside. We're going out there. It was cold last night. We didn't practice last night, but I got home and it was chilly. It was only because of the wind. If the wind died down, it was fine, but it was chilly. So I have not officially looked at the weather for tonight. So I don't know if it's going to be just as cold as it was last night or Tuesday when we practiced. Are you going to pull it up for me? All right, let's see. So, all right, what are you going to set the over-under before you pull it up here? Practice starts at 6 o'clock. It goes until 8:30. So do you want to look at the temperature at 6 o'clock? So you want to see what the temperature is going to be at 6 o'clock. Am I able to know what the temperature is right now? What is the temperature right now? It's 58 degrees right now. That does not bode well for tonight. I did not think it was that. I don't want to say cold. That's too strong a word. I will say it's 6 o'clock tonight. It's almost 1 o'clock. You think that many degrees per. I think when I get to practice tonight at 6 o'clock, it is going to be 53 degrees. That is my final answer. Lower, it's going to be warmer. It's going to be 55 degrees. It's going to be 57 degrees. It's going to get warmer. It's going to be 58 degrees. That's not how science works. So it's going to get, so we still have, so it's, okay, so 58 that it is right now, it's going to get warmer. It might peak out at like 65, 66 here in the next hour or so. Yeah, that's when we close the practice with conditioning. So that's good. That's great. Love that weather for that. It's how we close every practice. We close it with conditioning. So we are back on the practice field tonight. So we'll be keeping an eye on the Orange Bowl. We'll be keeping an eye on the Suns tonight as well. Last night, what a great basketball game. And we've had a bunch of bad basketball conversations today and this entire week on the show. There was some great basketball last night. If you are a diehard NBA fan, how did you not enjoy Cavs Thunder last night? There's your future of the NBA right there. That is a potential finals preview. I think we do it again in a couple of days or a week or so. They're on the calendar again together. That basketball game was a great show of where the NBA is right now. If you are just joining us, the Raiders fired their general manager, Tom Telesco, a couple days after they fired Antonio Pierce, so they will also be looking for a new head coach. Remember how we talked about the TGL, and I said I was pretty intrigued by it? It drew nearly 1 million viewers on ESPN. an average of 919,000 viewers during the 9 to 11 time slot. That is apparently a larger audience than any live golf broadcast in 2023 and 2024. And it was also larger than last week's PGA Tour season opener on the Golf Channel and on NBC. And it beat a Duke Pitt men's basketball game that was on the same time window last year. Now, did that have anything to do with Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy being there? They didn't play, but they were there. They were in the booth. Did that matter? We'll see. Because the next matchup is coming up on, I believe it is Tuesday, where Tiger Woods' team will play. And then McIlroy plays on January 27th. There are 15 regular season matches. So I, earlier this week in the Leftovers, told you that I like this a lot. The tech behind it was cool. I was more intrigued by it than I thought I was going to be. And so to see it draw well, listen, it's golf, right? It's going to have I think a peak audience that it's going to be able to draw. But to get near 1 million viewers, that's nothing to shake your head at. That's very, very impressive for them. The Hornets and Lakers game postponed due to the LA wildfires. If the NFL is unable to play that game on Monday because of everything going on with the wildfires, and it's just a heart-wrenching, heartbreaking situation there in LA of these fires, and they're just running uncontained basically right now and just destroying acres and acres of land and people's homes, and it is just devastating. It is so disappointing and just so upsetting to see these pictures and video and everything that comes out of this. And so the NFL has announced that if they are unable to play that game on Monday, and let's just face it, they should just move the game out of LA. They should just do the right thing and move it now. It's going to be played here at State Farm Stadium in Glendale. So the backup plan for Minnesota and LA, if they can't play it in LA, is to play it in Arizona. And let's face it, they should not be playing a football game on Monday because there is no sign of this thing ending by Monday. There are talks of it picking up here over the next couple of days. And the NFL, logistically, should just do the right thing. And if it does happen to solve itself over the next couple of days and you moved it and you didn't have to, that's okay too. That's going to do it. I have a draft pick to make. We'll be back tomorrow, the Friday edition. We've got picks. We'll get you ready for all of the playoff football action. Everybody, have a great rest of your Thursday. Jim Rome is next. See ya.